Tenable Network Security, creators of Nessus, the world's best vulnerability scanner. Jumpstart your security program today and evaluate Security Center CV, the continuous monitoring solution. For more information, visit them on the web at tenable.com. ProXPN is the leading VPN service offering free accounts, excellent premium features, and an outstanding commitment to privacy and security online. Use the discount code WEEKLY and save 50% off for life. NetSparker, the developers of desktop and cloud-based web application security scanners that enable you to automatically identify vulnerabilities in your web applications and web services. NetSparker scanners employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities with a proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at netsparker.com or email them at contact@netsparker.com. This is a Security Weekly production.
If you get into work each morning and wonder what the latest headlines are in information security, look no further than Hack Naked News, recorded, ironically, by our fully clothed hosts, Aaron Lyons, Bo Bullock, and Paul Asadorian. You'll get a quick 10-minute overview of all the latest security breaches, hacking tools, and information security news. Learn about the latest exploit kits, malware, data leaks, vulnerabilities, and more. Subscribe today with your favorite podcast catcher by visiting hacknaked.tv. Hack Naked News. We're fully dressed when we hack, but completely unfiltered.
Welcome back, everyone, to Security Weekly. This is the security news for this week, and as Larry's pointed out, my story number 1 is in there twice as story number 6. And the headline is Donald Trump running insecure email servers. The subtitle that the always creative register came up with is, but he's got a huge firewall, folks. The best kind of firewall. That's why that's really the only reason I had the story, because I thought that was funny.
Nor passing classified data through them.
Oh, wait.
Snap.
Right.
I was stuck on.
And define insecure email servers, really.
Need some ice for that burn?
Oh,
so Paul, I didn't follow this too much. I saw the thing that they say that he's got insecure email servers, but defined insecure.
So their web-based email access page relies on an outdated March 15th build of Microsoft Exchange 2007. It went end of life. There are no security fixes.
Okay. And IIS-6. Okay, and no two-factor authentication.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
Okay, all right.
So what you're saying is...
Shit's out of date. He spends more money on his campaign than he does his mail servers.
But what you're saying is that anyone's political campaign... because in history, how many people's political campaign associated technology has been hacked? I mean, this year was pretty epic in that the voting was potentially impacted, all that kind of stuff. But the political campaigns and technology being used is no different than really any other organization or country or nuclear program of a country or like whatever. So it's no different than anything else.
And I will argue that they found that multiple domains were, if I remember correctly, multiple domains were hosted at one set of devices, including Trump.org, which, and if I remember correctly, a good portion of those domains that were hosted were for other business assets and so forth, and typical business type of IT infrastructure, and that were potentially just adopted for the campaign stuff.
Exactly.
So, not surprising.
Not really news, other than the funny subtitle that.
Yeah, it's huge. He's got a huge firewall.
And another
that he made IT professionals pay for.
And another Captain Obvious, like the Mirai botnet that we talked about. You weren't here for this one, Larry.
Yes, I was.
Were you? Okay, so they more than doubled since the source code was released.
Duh. I'm surprised it's only more than doubled. I'm surprised it's not more.
Hey, we gave software away for free, and more people used it. Go figure. And not to mention, this particular software was in every freaking headline in every news source for information security and beyond for probably 3 weeks running now. We did some light analysis of I read through some of the source code and made the determination of what passwords they used. And
we were there when we talked about the DOS. We did with the DOS with Brian Krebs and all that stuff. Yeah, I was here for that.
Yeah,
that was the last show.
I was going to say, Paul, did you take a look at the source code? Because I actually did as well. And
what did you think of it, John?
It's a legitimate denial of service. It works.
Right? It works. Yeah,
it looked like it would work well for me. So.
But I thought
now modify it to use some amplification.
So, but now a lot of us here on the show have looked at malicious code in the past, and I thought, Joff, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that the programming skills were pretty good. Like, I thought they were a good programmer, and a lot of times when we look at code, it's like I'm like, oh my God, like what the hell?
What the shit?
This code pretty good.
And or borrowed a little bit, but. No, I think that the packet header construction was solid. As I was looking through it, I was like,
"That's right. This hits your direct realm of expertise, Joff." So yeah, I want to hear more about what you thought.
No, absolutely. No, it was. I started looking through the different functions in the TCP and UDP attacks, and they were absolutely relevant. And as soon as I read through the code, and I only just skimmed it, I was like, "Yeah, this is going to work. It's going to work all day long."
Yeah. So. But now, my question is, and I haven't heard anything back on this: is the code secure? Because the code actually connects to a telnet port of a system and reads the prompt back, and then checks it to see if it's a valid prompt in one of the functions. Ooh. Is that function secure when it reads that data back? Is there potential for a buffer overflow? I didn't look at the code well enough to determine if this particular code could be attacked. Joff, I don't know if you have either. If anyone else has, I'm curious to see if that's the case.
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't look at the command channel aspects, to be honest. I was interested more in the attack side, so I dug in on the actual DOS attack side of it.
Right, but there's quite a few lines of code in it, so.
Yeah, the CNC appears to be written in Go.
Yes.
So which is kind of interesting. And the actual bot side of it, the attack side of it, if you like, was written in C. So it's kind of a mixed animal. But at some point, I just didn't get to it yet. I was going to dig into the Go source and look at the command channel. Given that it's written in Go, though, I imagine the buffer constraints are taken care of. If it was just C, as we all know, C is amazingly loosey-goosey when it comes to bounds checking.
We'll talk offline, John. There is some C code that I think does read the prompt back. That it gets back when it connects.
Okay.
I'm curious to see if that code's secure or not. I'm not the world's foremost expert on detecting buffer overflows.
Not only login prompts, but command prompt completion. Because they echo, they do a specific command that is supposed to return a specific output. So if you could change the binaries that do that output, that might be interesting.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Yeah, it's a good point, Larry. So they said it doubled from 213,000 to 493,000. Which is reports I read that it's the botnet is up to 500,000, which just goes to show you how many vulnerable devices are out there. And not just vulnerable devices, but specifically devices on the internet that are running telnet with about 60 or so default credentials.
I just had an awful idea.
Yeah, I am that sick that I'm actually analyzing the source code as we're talking.
Yes, you're curious, right?
and I just had an awful idea, which I'll discuss with you guys offline.
All right, we'll have a little post-show powwow. Skyping and typing could lead to privacy. So basically, some people can snoop on what you're typing within Skype, which I don't.
How does this work? Does it analyze the audio while you're typing, or?
Don't Skype and type acoustic eavesdropping and voice over IP was the presentation delivered by Alberto Campagno of the University of Rome and Mauro Conti and Danielle Lane of the University of Padua and Jean Sedutic of the University of California, Irvine. Wow, that's a lot of people's names that are really hard to pronounce.
They managed to be able to pick up individual keystrokes just through the audio signature.
Yep.
Right.
It's really kind of interesting.
Very interesting research.
And I would argue very complex, given that every keyboard will sound slightly different, and especially brand versus. Yeah.
So it's interesting. So the attack is slightly. It's interesting because they are. If you're on a, we've all been on calls where you hear someone typing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so they're able to. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and
and I have I actually just bought a new keyboard that is the old styled chunky
Ciccone keys.
Yeah,
The Ciccone.
It's loud. In other words, right?
Yep.
I like to know I'm pressing the key. I'm old school like that.
We know we have somebody at work that's the same way, JBL, that has one of those old school ergonomic keyboards that they're very distinctive when they're talking.
Right.
You have to tell JBL to mute the microphone.
Stop. Yes. Stop.
No, not stop. Just mute the microphone. Yeah. JBL, love you.
So Lance Spitzer had a great article, I thought, about what IoT and security needs to learn from the miter saw. Now, those of you that have used a miter saw or done any kind of woodworking, it's kind of interesting. I
have the scars to prove it.
Yeah, got the scars to prove it. Yeah,
which is the point.
Miter saws in general are, I've found, one of the safer saws to operate.
Yep.
Like the likelihood that you're going to lose a finger or get something thrown back at you is fairly low,
unless
right?
Unless you're doing something dumb.
Unless you're doing something dumb. And I've done a lot of dumb things on a miter saw, and I still have all my appendages and my eyeballs and all that. Yeah, and all that stuff.
Me too.
But the thing with the miter saw is the blade spins away from you.
Yep.
And as Lance says, there's a safety cover, there's a power switch, and it has a light that projects the shadow of the cutting blade precisely on the wood and on some models as well. So therefore making it a safer tool to use. Now, you compare and contrast that to a table saw.
Oh, yeah.
Table saw is
the worst. Say, table saws are dangerous.
Yeah, it's like the worst.
Except for the one, you've seen the one that you can test it instead of using your own finger. You put a hot dog and it stops.
Yeah.
But that still doesn't prevent kickbacks.
Right.
So when you get to the end,
because the blade spins toward you on a table saw, which means if a piece of wood gets stuck between the fence and the blade,
or you get to the end, it flies back at you if you're standing back at it. Yeah, I've shot a piece of 2x4.
I've gotten hit in the chest.
I've shot a piece of 2x4 across the shop.
That's what the pushers are for, boys.
Yep.
It sucks.
Yeah, exactly. That's what pushers are for. But still, arm will still come loose with a pusher, and it will still.
It's always that one where you're like, I've been safe all day.
Yeah.
Quick.
Fuck! I just gotta cut this one piece. I won't put the safety glasses on. Oh my eye! I'm not supposed to get jigs in it.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
But so then the argument is we need to do a better job of this with security. Yeah, I think it's actually a good point. Right.
I think it's pretty sound.
We need to save the users from themselves from making stupid mistakes.
Right.
Like you need to put the warning label about this coffee is hot on the freaking cup of coffee.
Well, I don't think that's ever stopped anybody. But I think this overshadows a subtler point. UX, the user experience, the user design is not at odds with security. We've got to end that myth. We've got to end it now. You can design something that's good for people to do their jobs and to be secure, period. Yes. Done. Yes. Stop with the whole security has to have a compromise. There has to be a trade-off. It's necessarily inconvenient. None of those things are true. And what they're pointing out is that you can go buy a really nice piece of equipment that will largely protect you from yourself and is easy to use. And is kind of fun to use because, they're fun.
Absolutely.
Except for crown molding. I've never enjoyed doing
No, I've never. Yeah, that just gets beyond my.
Those angles, that's math. You guys are smart. I can't do this.
Yeah. We have computers to do math.
Yeah, see, my chop saw has none of that fancy angled mitered.
Oh, you got to get yourself a compound sliding miter saw.
I don't have one of those. I have one of those.
The chop saw.
It's a chop saw that you can change angles and.
Yeah,
that's
got to get the compound. The compound means it moves side to side.
Yep.
And you can move this way, side to side, and it slides.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know. But
I have actually in the next door.
Well, that's a sliding compound miter. Now you're just getting fancy.
I do. I have my sliding compound miter saw is actually next door. We should break it out, and I'll show you how it works. We'll cut some
laser
stuff.
Guy,
Let's go. Give me some wood. Let's cut some stuff live on the show. That'll be awesome.
Start with the interns. Yeah, they don't need all their fingers. So you start
like that skit with Jim Carrey where he's the fire things. Let me show you something, and he sets himself on fire every time.
Yes.
Yes. Give me some wood and my miter saw, and let me show you something. Oh boy. WikiLeaks, Julian Assange has his internet shut down.
I heard this was because he flushed his own SIM card down the toilet.
I'm not sure why this is news, but
hey, let's delve into it.
And they just got the most ridiculous picture of Hillary Clinton that they could find.
She's got blood.
And this is the BBC, and because other countries are really laughing at our political climate right now. And the subtitle is "WikiLeaks has released Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton's paid speeches to Goldman Sachs," is the subtitle, which has very little to do with the fact that Julian Assange. But they had to throw that in there for good measure and poke fun at our political climate right now. Anyway,
and the sad part is, according to this article, he's got asylum at London's Ecuadorian embassy since 2012 to avoid extradition over sex assault. Nothing to do with WikiLeaks.
Well, that's because, how did they get Al Capone, right? They got him on wire fraud and tax evasion. Or mail fraud or whatever. Or it wouldn't have been wire fraud then. It was mail fraud. But, I think the interesting thing about this is what you just laid out. So he's in the Ecuadorian consulate in London, and he's sending out information about the U.S., I'm kind of surprised he's had internet access as long as he has. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just saying if you look at the politics of it,
yeah. WikiLeaks couldn't be in a more politically charged environment right now. Yeah, that's the area they played in, and that's the area they played in for a long time.
They like that. So it's easy to say, "Oh, look, they cut me off. They're trying to silence me." Wait, hold on, though. Because, keep in mind, right, since I've read another report, and I don't have it handy, but since Ecuador has done this, they've gotten zero aid from the U.S., right? So different politics, different issue, but their asylum for him has cost them dearly relative to to their neighboring states. And, he kind of got to a point where people said, "Yeah, dude, you got to take a break here."
Well, how many open Wi-Fi access points open up near the Ecuadorian embassy?
Yeah, well, speaking of the political climate, a lot of articles today are talking about either other countries hacking us or us specifically. The one I focus on is us hacking other countries.
Yep.
Do they have one of those nice sets of attribution dice?
Yes.
We have?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
All right. Well, then okay. Then it has to be real. They can't. That stuff doesn't lie. They can't make that up.
My take on that is I don't dismiss attribution from a lot of folks. However, when the attribution comes out very quickly, I'm highly skeptical. I think it takes a lot of time and other non-technical factors to really point to and have other facts that point to attribution. I read the thing is specifically of Stuxnet, right? As time went on and you analyzed both the code, the political climate, the whole thing, and several years later, we have so much better case, right? And other people come out, other things are leaked for good, bad, or indifferent, and it can really point to specifically pinpointing who did the attack. But today, what I want to talk about is the rhetoric, right, of not just the people who are in power today, the people who are running for government, and the media are all talking about we're going to attack this country. And, we think this country attacked us, so we're going to attack them back. And I just sit there as I read these articles and watch the news, and I'm like, what happened to the element of surprise? If you're going to attack someone, why would you announce that to the world if it wasn't part of some just political agenda? The only reason that you announced that you attacked someone or didn't attack someone and make an announcement about it in either case is if it's some part of some political agenda. If you don't have a political agenda, right? You're Tom Brady and you walk off stage. I mean, that's, you know, you don't answer the question.
Nice.
Because you don't want to get in the mix.
Yep.
Well, I think there's a myopia at play here too, right? It's easier. It's like we've said this before. If you say cyber, people hear spider, and you just kill it with fire. So it's about, they're getting involved in the cybers. It's really bad. Governments have been trying to subvert elections in governments for years. Mm-hmm. This isn't new.
Right.
The methods might be updated to a certain
The quote
extent,
that I love is that according to sources, including government officials, the intent is to embarrass top Russian officials through clandestine, and it's in quotes, clandestine and widespread hacking. Like, if you're writing about it in the news right now, how the frig is it clandestine right now?
And I want to go back to your attribution thing, and I got to put it in the show notes for later. But Hacks for Pancakes had this great sort of interview type of series on her blog at Tsephone.net. With Cryptia herself, Munin, Ryan Duff, DA667, Viss, and Coleman Kane about nation-state threat attribution. And there was some really great insight from some of those types of folks and what some of their thoughts on nation-state attribution and speed and all that type of stuff was. If you could go to Tsephone.net, so TIS iPhone.net. It's the second blog post currently there. It's the one from, where is it? It's from October 11th. Great fun stuff. I read through it, and it was really interesting, and things that it's very much along the lines of, it came out now, it's got to be Russia. Wait, no, maybe not.
Well, and the claim from the Hillary camp is that there were 17
Russian IPs.
No, 17 U.S. government agencies that attributed the attacks to Russia.
Right, because it came from Russian IPs.
Yeah, that was debunked today.
I thought so. I mean, because anytime you come out that quickly with that level of certainty from all those organizations.
There were 17. Wait a minute. Name the 17 organizations that we...
Anyway.
From Munin, extremely thorough analysis coupled with corroborating reports from third parties. You will never get the whole story from the evidence your logs get. You are only getting the story your attacker wants you to see.
Yep.
Only the most naive of attackers is likely to let you have a true story, unless they're sending a specific message.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
We talked about a story the last week or two ago, about how attackers will purposely, use a cert from Stuxnet or use something from another attack to just throw people off.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the weeks you weren't here, but they'll purposely they'll use stuff
change the threat profile.
They'll use stuff that security professionals, independent third parties, and government agencies from the U.S., for example, will say, they used that signature or that code or that certificate. That must mean they're of this profile. And they've done that on purpose to just deceive while they're really doing other things and make it look like someone else.
Yeah, so, malleable C2.
That stuff that's just totally in play, dude. Speaking of debunking, there's an article about why your face should be your username and not your password.
Fuck no.
I agree.
No,
the article tries to make a compelling argument.
I'd say no either way.
About why your face should be a way to identify you. And I think back to the story you told about Twitchy, right? Was it on your laptop?
No, it wasn't on. It was on his own laptop.
Yeah, and he had some software that would do facial recognition. And all he did was take a picture of someone, print it out, and hold that up.
Yep.
And it was able to defeat the facial recognition.
Right. Now, sure, you're going to maybe have to convert that with something else. But what happens when I want to have multiple accounts on the same service? No, my face should not be.
No, you can wink or you can make like little duck face or something. I think you're going to be perfect. Look,
but what about facial hair and glasses? And
that doesn't impact the geometry of your face
at all.
You'd have to get in a big fight with somebody to do that. I mean, look on its face. No pun intended.
Wow.
I didn't get deep into this one yet, so I may be speaking out of school here. But when we look at authentication, people always forget, right? There's identification, and there's authentication.
Yeah.
Identification is who you are, and there's a whole system of proofing around that. And then there's authentication, and that's the proof that you are who you claim to be. So if we're saying people were going to use selfies for authentication, that makes me cry. But if we say, no, that could just be the identification of who you are, but you still have to go through an authentication scheme.
No, that's a good point, Michael. I don't
have a problem with that. Now, Larry, you point out an interesting use case. If you want to have multiple user accounts, how does that work? Yeah, I don't know. But I think for most people, they're not in that case, and they're like so it just sees a picture of me, I'm good. Now, they're going to say, and then I put my thumbprint down and we're in? That's got problems.
No, because those are still things that you have, not necessarily things that you know.
So for me,
and that are not protected under the Fifth Amendment.
Anything biometric, whether it be username or password, that you cannot change is bad. Or could not follow you should things change. I mean, think about, and I'm going to be politically correct here. Think about the transgendered community when they transgender. That in many cases their facial structure will significantly change, and now their username doesn't work.
Well, that and any kind of plastic surgery.
Sure.
We've certainly seen Hollywood stars whose facial features have changed.
Gosh, let me be clear. I don't want to make it sound like I'm actually supporting any of this stuff. I'm pretty vocal that every time somebody cries about a password and how they just need to go away, that they don't actually understand authentication, and passwords aren't going to go away, so good luck with that. But in terms of saying your face is identification, not authentication, I don't have a fundamental problem.
What are you saying? Who are you supporting, Michael? Are you supporting all races and religions in the LGBT community? Who are you supporting? If you're running for office, Michael, we want to know your views on all of these issues.
He's going to build a wall. He's going to build a wall around your face.
I am a uniter, not a divider. I love everybody equally, or maybe it's I don't like anybody.
And you know that he did.
I either like or don't like everyone, but it's totally equally. And it's not based on any of those other factors.
And you note that he did the hands very appropriately, and that they were together in unity, and that they weren't pointing with one finger; they were pointing with two.
Well, yeah, because then if you point with one, right? There's three coming back at you, and we can't have that. No, I maybe spent too much time looking at authentication and identification over the years, but I find that we do a lot of hyperbole around this, and it's all, well, passwords are bad, let's get rid of them because people are stupid and passwords are bad. Well, what are you going to replace it with, and how is that viewed in the legal system? And so, no, Larry, everything you said, I'm on board with. I was only simply saying, if the argument is your face should be authentication biometrically versus identification, I'm okay with identification conceptually. In practice, I'm not a fan of it. But I read some study yesterday, like 60% of us are already in a bunch of facial recognition databases.
Sure.
So, and by the way, those of us on this show, I assure you, we're in more than one.
Yeah, exactly. And I think about that, and I think about authentication. And who we are, and are we really who we say we are? I go back to the whole sneakers montage of my voice is my password. Identify me.
Right.
I mean, that's something you cannot change for authorization or your potential username. My name is Werner Brandis. I mean, your name is Werner Brandis. You.
By the way, to inject a completely irrelevant comment to this conversation, and to go back to Mirai briefly, line 309 of main.c is where you want to look to check whether the buffer length received from the CNC is appropriately in bounds.
Does it actually check it, or does it not check it?
It does check it. Okay. That doesn't necessarily mean that it is not potentially exploitable.
Right. Interesting. Well, and speaking of voice, Larry, I don't necessarily have a story, but I think that we had Ed Scotus on the show, and he talked about how he's using Siri to do a lot of voice activation in his own in test environment that he's been working with,
and his interns and all of his staff have the ability to do so.
Yeah, but now you look at Amazon Echo, their recent marketing push in the last month has really brought the voice interaction when you interface with the computer to the forefront. I would see the next logical step is making that part of either authentication or authorization or identification of the person, I think that it was interesting. Ed got me thinking about this. Like, I think he's right. I think voice is really like something that is going to be part of the way we interface with a computer more than ever before. And a lot of us older
Star
people...
Trek already proved it.
Yeah, a lot of us older people, right, that watch Star Trek, that remember the dragon text-to-speech, and
Dragon
we're fascinated.
Dictate.
Dragon Dictate. We're fascinated by that and how we can do text-to-speech. Now, what's funny is that text-to-speech still really sucks.
Yep.
Here we are 20 years, 30 years later.
It's
we're like,
gotten
wow,
better.
it still kind of sucks.
So
if you've tried to transcribe text messages on any phone platform,
it's getting better.
or you've got voicemail that transcribes the voicemail into text.
My iPhone just started doing that, and I'm like, "This is fantastic! I don't have to listen to this shit."
Yeah,
even if it's not right, I get the
you
gist.
get the gist. You still just get the gist.
like,
It's not anywhere where it could be. It's not anything like on Star. Like I'm sure on Star Trek when they transcribe their voicemail messages, like it's perfect. Man.
Yep.
What's the computer
It's
on Star
improvement.
Trek? What's her name?
Computer.
Computer. No, but there's a name for it in Star Trek Next Generation, and the voice is the mom of the other chick, and she was in Star Trek.
Gene Roddenberry's wife, I think.
Was it? And she's she plays a character in Star. And there's people yelling at me right now. I apologize.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared to talk about this level of Star Trek.
It's Counselor Troy. It's Counselor Troy's mother.
Counselor Troy's mother. What's her name on the show? Anyone? Anyone in the live chat?
Shit.
Loaxana.
What is it?
Loaxana.
Alexana? No, Alexa's the Amazon thing.
No, Loaxana. Loaxana Troy.
Loaxana Troy. Yeah, and she's the voice of the computer, right? Am I not? I'm
That
pretty
is
sure.
correct.
Okay.
I am an ultimate Star Trek geek, so that is
Thank you,
correct.
Joff. Thank you, our resident Star
So
Trek.
that said,
that puts you at like dork level Star Trek, by the way.
I know.
That
right?
means that when you walk through doors, you make the noise that the doors are opening as you walk through them. By the
Let's put it
way,
this way: my wife's SMS tone is the door noise.
there
on
you
Star
go.
Trek, so.
See. Anyway,
so that said,
I don't know where I was going with that.
I think Ed is onto
that
something.
was just the martini talking, which is why people listen to just see stupid shit Paul's going to say.
The presentation he gave at DerbyCon about his automation.
Yes.
Is that the real failure in the home automation and all this type of market is that we need to be reliant on a third party to do really good AI for voice. I.e. Alexa or Siri, as in Josh, right, was doing a lot of experimentation with Alexa. Ed has done a lot of experimentation with Siri.
Now, Google has their own platform they just announced this October as well.
Yep.
They have a competition to the Amazon Echo.
Yep. So, I mean...
And Microsoft has Cortana.
Cortana, yep. So this is, I think this is really where it's going to come down to. And I have both Siri on my iPhone. I have an Alexa. I have Amazon Echo with Alexa.
And I'm sure Google's implementation is based on the Android versions
stuff.
of their...
Yep.
Which actually Google's...
Okay, Google.
The OK Google stuff,
Yep.
I've been using it for a year now. I don't know, a while.
Yep.
It's pretty good. I like it, actually.
So I still haven't figured out how to train Siri appropriately because Siri...
Well, Siri's a bitch. I mean, let's just be honest right now. Siri is a bitch.
No, Siri is okay for me, and I like it, but...
And she's listening, and now the next time I know she's going to be like, I heard what you said about me on Paul Security Weekly, you know.
Yeah, but so Siri is not great in that and I need to figure out a way to fix the stuff so that every time I say my eldest daughter's name to Siri, it does not spell it correctly, even though I've typed it into stuff 1,000 times.
Right.
I think that's because you talk funny, Larry.
Well, agreed. I do talk funny, but still, Siri knows how to fix everything else except for that one name. And Alexa's pretty good. She has some issues from time to time, especially when it's the kids talking and they don't enunciate properly.
I want to thank Ryan in the chat who says Majel Barrett Roddenberry was the voice of the computer in Star Trek. That's the actress that played.
Was I not
Is
correct?
That the IRC channel?
Gene's wife.
Is that the regular IRC channel?
That's the YouTube chat.
Oh, the YouTube chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
We also have a Facebook. We're live on Facebook as well, Larry.
God.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're everywhere now.
That's too many things for me to keep track of.
Get with the times, Larry.
You don't tell me about these things.
We're going to be streaming on Twitter.
Oh, right.
too.
That's right. I got to be on the call at
On Thursday, yeah.
Right. Yeah. My own damn fault.
Anyway.
Jeez, Larry.
Anyway.
What were we talking about? Something about security.
Somebody end this thing.
Face and username. I got one that I want to.
Yeah, go ahead. You've got some stories in there, please.
That I thought was pretty neat was the image steganography for C2. That there's some stealthy malware ops using Instagram. In that they dubbed their product Instiogram, and that they're using steganography in Instagram images to be able to deliver C2 to compromised devices. And I thought this was particularly interesting, not because of the steganography, but because they are dealing with when you upload an image to Instagram and that it gets converted and compressed and resized, and that the data that they are using is still supported through steganography through all of those motions. I mean, you take a JPEG and they'll potentially recompress it to reduce the file size on Instagram servers and change some of that information. This is very similar to some of the things that Ben Jackson and I were dealing with when we were looking at some of the Twitter stuff, in that only through the various Twitter image sharing services, the regular image you see did not contain the EXIF metadata. The original large size, when you clicked upon it, had the full size data, or had the data in the full size image. So how do you get past that compression and resizing? And that was where Facebook was awesome, in that they did image compression and resizing and resampling us effectively, and it removed all of the stuff you really needed, and these guys have found a way to get around that.
Interesting.
Nice.
Yeah. Yep. And, specifically targeted to Instagram. So, for one of the methodologies.
Wait, so how do they get the EXIF? Do they get the EXIF data back from the compressed image?
Don't know if it's EXIF data. It's steganography, so technically it's not EXIF data.
Oh, I gotcha.
It's changing color data.
Okay, so if it's steg, though, how does... I mean, I'm probably going to ask the ignorant question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
It's endgame, folks.
How does C2...
Oh, was it endgame?
Yeah.
How does C2 factor in?
So they use the steganography in the images in Instagram to affect C2. So
okay.
But Stego is able to survive whatever Instagram is doing to the images when you upload them, because Larry showed us several years ago.
The real point is to keep the integrity of the message, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Keeping the integrity of the message through re-encoding, compression, and resizing.
No, that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. So when you have when John has the endgame folks on.
Yeah. Well, Endgame's starting to do a couple of different things on the show. So
I'd love to talk to him.
We'll definitely ask him about that.
Yep.
As I did, just further proving my point earlier that Endgame's engineers do some awesome stuff. Cool.
Yep.
What else you got, Larry?
Let's see there. The other one was from Extra Pancakes on screwing up fake identities. I thought that was pretty neat when you're going in for, quote, the long con for doing phishing and any of that type of stuff. Some ways in which, some advice on creating fake identities. And then finally from Ben Jackson was the free IP address to ASN database updated hourly.
Because reasons.
Because you never know why you might want to.
You never know when you might need this data, but if you ever want to map IP to an ASN.
Yep, so you can start blocking ASN to IP if you so choose. We talked about that, blocking countries and that type of stuff. So that might be kind of interesting.
No, that's actually a nice little source. The Kimmery folks have been doing that for a while, but I'm not sure that it's updated hourly.
Yep, this one is.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And it's free.
He must be directly drawing out of a BGP feed and just making it available, which is completely awesome.
I would argue they don't describe how they do it, but that might be interesting to find out how they're doing it.
You said it's Ben Jackson?
Yep, Ben Jackson shared that. It's not Ben Jackson that's doing it.
Okay, we could ask Ben, but he shared it. I gotcha. Okay.
Let's put it this way. He shared it, I picked it up from him.
Gotcha.
He's got to be tapped into BGP somewhere to be able to pull that off. That's cool.
Alrighty. Well, that concludes this edition of Security Weekly. I want to thank everyone for listening and watching. Make sure you visit securityweekly.com/hunt for our latest webcast coming up on November 1st. I want to thank our special guest, Adrian de Beaupre, and all of our hosts this evening, Michael, Joff, and Larry. Thank you, guys.
Boo. Thank you, Paul. Huge shout out to the team in South Dakota tonight for tuning in. Love you guys.
Thanks, guys. Larry, take us out.
Over and out. Peanuts.
I love that picture of John. I wanted Mark to make him say, why is it? And then Paul was naked. That's what it looks like.